Hello friends, welcome back to our YouTube channel Doctor's Corner. Today we are going to discuss about the physiology of hearing. Okay, how exactly a human being will perceive the sound which is coming from the external world, that is the sound waves, how it will go to our brain and how we perceive the different frequencies, different types of different loudness. Okay, that we are going to discuss in this physiology of hearing. Just to remind you, we have already discussed about the anatomy of the external ear, middle ear and inner ear, and also the auditory pathway in the previous 4 lectures. Okay, that's already there in our channel Doctor's Corner. Those who have not seen that video, I request them, so please go to the playlist of our channel Doctor's Corner and please see the anatomy of the external ear, middle ear and inner ear and auditory pathway. And if you watch that and understand the basic concepts and basic anatomy of that, then this for today's lecture will be bit easy to understand. Okay, so now we'll start our today's topic, physiology of hearing. To start with, I'll just draw just a rough diagram to understand what is external ear, middle ear and inner ear. So basically this physiology of hearing is mainly due to the mechanisms or the role of the external ear, middle ear and inner ear. So this external ear, as you know, it consists of this auricle or known as pinna, and we have the external auditory meatus, that is basically a S-shaped tube. Okay, so I'm just drawing a physiological diagram rather than the exact anatomical diagram to understand the phenomena. I'm not drawing the S-shaped tube, instead just a horizontal canal. Okay, then we have a curved membrane, okay, which is known as tympanic membrane. Again, we have discussed in detail about the tympanic membrane. Just medial to the tympanic membrane we have the middle ear cavity, that is the air filled cavity. Okay, again I won't go in detail about this middle ear cavity. Then in the middle ear cavity there are so many contents. The air is the important content. Then the most important one is the ear ossicles, that is the ear bones. We have 3 ear ossicles or the ear bones, which are malleus, incus and stapes. Okay, so malleus, incus and stapes. Okay, so 3 ossicles, they are joined by the synovial joints, and this foot plate of the stapes opens into the middle ear by one structure. That structure, it is known as oval window. Okay, I hope this foot plate, it is attached to the oval window by the annular ligament. Okay, now this oval window opens into the inner ear. Again, I'll draw a physiological diagram of the inner ear other than the anatomical diagram. It is, if you unwind the cochlea, so it is basically made up of this outer bony canal and the inner one more structure. It is by the help of the 2 membranes. It is divided into 3 compartments. Okay, this is the Risner's membrane, this is the basilar membrane. So this is an unwind unwind cochlea. So this is known as scala vestibuli, this is scala media and this is scala tympani. So in the scala vestibuli and scala tympani there is fluid or liquid part. That fluid, it is called as perilymph. Okay, perilymph. Okay, this is known as perilymph. And in the scala media, again there is a fluid. That fluid or the liquid part, it is called as endolymph. Okay, endolymph. We have discussed already in detail about this thing, so time won't permit me to explain in detail about that once again. Okay, so this endolymph consists of the potassium, more amount of the potassium with respect to this perilymph. Okay, this perilymph, the composition, it is almost equal to the composition of the ECF and this endolymph as if ICF. Okay, anyway, this is the general plan of external ear, middle and inner ear. Now the main thing in the physiology of hearing, or also known as the mechanism of hearing, how the sound waves can travel from this external ear to the middle ear and ultimately to the inner ear. And again in the inner ear there is the main structure. That structure is known as organ of Corti. Okay, that is the receptor organ, that is organ of Corti. Okay, where they will have the hair cells, outer hair cell, inner hair cell and the tectorial membrane and the reticular lamina, so and so. So how exactly this one from this external ear, middle ear and inner ear, and the sound waves are converted into the electrical energy, that is the mechanical energy is converted into electrical energy at this inner hair cells or the outer hair cell that is at the inner ear, and these are transmitted through the auditory nerve, that is the vestibulocochlear nerve, and it will go to the via auditory pathway to the brain. We have already discussed about the auditory pathway. Now, so this physiology or the mechanism of hearing we can study under the three important headings. Okay, first one is sound conduction. Okay, conduction of the sound, that is how the sound waves, that is, are transmitted or conducted through the external and the middle ear mainly, and to the inner ear obviously. Then after that, transduction of the sound, conduction of the sound, then transduction of the sound. Okay, then finally transduction means conversion of this sound wave, that is a mechanical energy, into electrical energy. Then finally, the third important concept is the neural transmission and encoding. Okay, how the that is the electrical energy which is transmitted through this inner hair cells, it is transmitted through the neural pathway, that is the auditory pathway, and how it is encoded, that is how the signals are encoded, and how different frequencies are perceived, how different levels of the loudness are perceived, that we are going to discuss under these three headings. Okay, so physiology of hearing we discuss under these three headings. Also we discuss under the three headings of role of external ear. External ear means this pinna and external auditory meatus, role of the middle ear and role of the inner ear. Okay, so this keeping in mind these three side headings, we will study again in further in three side heading. First, role of external ear. Okay, role of external ear. What is the role of this in this physiology or mechanism of hearing? So role of external ear is mainly in this conduction of the sound, that is the sound waves which is there in the external environment are transmitted to the inner ear by the external ear. So it acts as a conduction. Okay, so it helps in the conduction of the sound, also localization of this sound. Okay, so it acts mainly as a receiver of this sound. Okay, and it's a typical arrangement of this pinna, that is this it helps in knowing the direction of the sound. Okay, suppose if I close my eyes, okay, and someone speaks from front or someone speaks from back side, how I am able to know whether the sound is coming from front or backward? So it is because of the typical arrangement of this pinna or the external ear. So the sound waves gets reflected here and ultimately conducts, and there is a change in the quality of the sound wave, so that I can make out the sound is coming from which direction. Okay, one more thing is how the sound is coming from which direction, for example from right or left. Okay, so one mechanism is time lag. Okay, suppose if the sound is coming from the right side, okay, so these sound waves will first come and enter through the right ear rather than the left ear. So there is some time lag for the sound waves to enter into the left ear. So by the time the sound waves come here and all this mechanism what we are going to discuss, so it will first go to the brain, and your brain will perceive that the sound is coming from this particular side. Okay, right side or left side. We'll discuss about that in detail. First, the role of this external ear. So basically it will conduct, localize and transmit the sound waves to the inner ear. So it will actually magnify that force of the sound because of this natural resonance of the external ear and all. So they will up to 6 decibels of the loudness, that is the normal sound waves which are entering, it will increase, that is the external ear and middle ear together it will increase up to 15 to 22 decibels, and just external ear, that is pinna and this external auditory meatus, up to 6 decibel it will increases. Okay, so that is all about the external ear. Now the main thing is about the middle ear. So the role of the middle ear. So in the physiology of hearing, middle ear and inner ear plays a very important role. Okay, so see, as you know, in the external ear and the middle ear, the medium is air, that is in the external ear there is air and middle ear is also air, as you know very well. Okay, and the pressure between these two is maintained by the eustachian tube. I need not tell the anatomy once again. Those who missed the anatomy part, please go and see my video so that the concept will be more clear. Okay, so here there is air, okay, and in the inner ear there is liquid or the fluid portion. Okay, so what is the basic mechanism is the sound energy or the sound waves which are coming from the external ear, it will get transmitted to the middle ear. How it will get transmitted? You know that the partition between external and middle ear is this tympanic membrane. or the eardrum. So the sound waves vibrate this tympanic membrane. Okay, due to the vibration of this tympanic membrane, as this malleus, that is the handle of the malleus, is attached to the tympanic membrane, this malleus bone will vibrate, and since they are interconnected, the ear ossicles, malleus, incus and stapes, they are interconnected by the synovial joints. So this is known as ossicular chain, so they will also vibrate. Okay, and they will transmit that vibrations into the middle ear. Okay, sounds very so simple, right? The sound waves from this tympanic membrane vibrations are basically transmitted to the vibrations of these ossicles to the inner ear. It's not so simple. Why? Because the medium here is air and here is liquid. So in a general context, if you I'll give an example. Suppose a person is inside the water. Okay, suppose imagine there is a swimming pool, a person is standing there, and he is not totally inside the swimming pool, that is below the water surface. Now if you want to speak to the same person who is inside the swimming pool, that is below the water level, then what is your inference? So generally the person who is inside that water level will not be able to hear the voice. Why? Because there is a change in the medium. From the air medium, our sound waves are going to the water medium, and generally there is a reflection. 99% of the waves will get reflected back. So that's why the person who is below the surface of the water will not be able to hear our sound. Okay, and the same person come up, that is above the level of the water, then in the same medium he can hear this sound. Okay, one more example I'll give you, that is basically the water will give some resistance, that is known as impedance. Okay, for example, if you walk in a air, air means in a general on land, just you walk, okay, in a normal air medium. So the same person if walks in a water medium, okay, suppose in a swimming pool up to this level, if there is a water and you are walking, so what do you feel? Whether you will be comfortable walking or the velocity will be the same? No, there will be resistance to the lower limbs, okay, because of the liquid medium. So liquid medium provides some resistance. When you walk or run in the liquid medium or water, definitely there is a resistance as compared to the normal walking in the air medium, right? So same thing happens here. Now the vibrations has to go to the inner ear. Now there is a problem, is this media from air medium to fluid medium. For this, God has created this middle ear, and this middle ear have some compensatory mechanism, and due to this compensatory mechanisms, the vibrations which are transmitted to the tympanic membrane to the middle ear can get transmitted to the inner ear. Okay, now what we are going to discuss, we can also study as functions of the middle ear. So the first most important functions of the middle ear is it will be doing the impedance matching. Okay, that was the impedance mismatching due to the change in the media, air to fluid media. So this middle ear will do impedance matching. So what is this impedance matching? Is basically it will increases the force of the sound waves. Okay, generally what the sound waves are coming, it will increases the force so that the sound waves can transmit to the fluid medium inside the from the air medium, okay, to the inner ear, and just the normal sounds which are coming, there is a hindrance because of the change in the media to push that sound waves into the inner ear liquid media. It has to magnify it, that is it has to increase the force of the sound wave. So this force of the sound wave is magnified by this middle ear, and this phenomenon is known as impedance matching. How exactly this middle ear will do or magnify it, and how many times it will magnify? So first thing is lever action of the ossicles. Lever action of the ossicles. So the natural arrangement of this ear ossicles, or the shape of the ossicles, if you consider the ossicular chain as a lever system, so the head of the malleus as compared to the long process of the incus is around 1.3 times longer, okay, and due to this longer size of the head of the malleus with respect to the long process of the incus, it will magnify or increase the force of the sound waves to around 1.3 times, okay. This is one phenomena. Another one is hydraulic action of the tympanic membrane. So you know that the surface area of the tympanic membrane is around 55 to 60 square millimeter, okay, square millimeter. Now this vibration of the tympanic membrane has to be transmitted to the oval window. Oval window is a very small window as compared to tympanic membrane, and the surface area of the oval window is around 3.2 square millimeter. Okay, so the sound waves or the vibrations from 55 square millimeter has to be transmitted up to just 3.2 square millimeter. Okay, so however it is the effective tympanic membrane surface area is not all tympanic membrane will be vibrating 45 square millimeter, but theoretically we'll take it as 55 millimeter for calculation purpose. So 55 divided by 3.2, it will be roughly 17. Okay, so it will increases the force of vibration because the vibration from the larger surface area is concentrated on a smaller surface area, so it will increases the force by 17 times. So if we consider these two things, okay, that is the lever action of the ossicles and the hydraulic action of the tympanic membrane, if we multiply 17 into 1.3, roughly it is 22 times. Okay, so 22 times it will increases the force of the sound waves. So from this what is normally entering from the external ear and to the middle ear, it is magnifying for that 22 times, and because of that magnification, that sound waves can be transmitted to the middle ear. Okay, even though there is change in the media, that is from air to, sorry, it is transmitted to inner ear from the air medium to liquid medium. So this is known as impedance matching. Okay, so this is one of the function of the middle ear. It will magnify or increases the force of the sound waves so that it can be transmitted, that waves should be transmitted into this liquid medium. One thing. Second thing is, it has an middle ear has an attenuation reflex. It is actually a protective reflex. So what is this attenuation reflex? As you know, in the middle ear there are two muscles. One is stapedius, another one is tensor tympani. So this tensor tympani usually enters the middle ear through the anterior wall. If you remember the anatomy of the middle ear, through the anterior wall there are two openings. From the above opening, the one canal of the tensor tympani muscle comes, and it is supplied by the fifth cranial nerve. Okay, so tensor tympani that will go through the again hook of processes cochleoformes, and it will attach to the handle of the malleus near the neck of the malleus. So here, so this tensor tympani, when it contracts, it will pull the malleus inside, that is, and make the tympanic membrane tense. That is the main function of this tensor tympani. Along with the tensor tympani, there is one more muscle, stapedius, that is from the posterior wall of the middle ear. If you remember the pyramid, through that one muscle will come. It is stapedius. It is supplied by the seventh cranial nerve. Remember, this is fifth cranial nerve. This is known as, and this is through this seventh cranial nerve, that is the facial nerve. Okay, the nerve to the stapedius. So this will again attach to the neck of this stapes. So when it contracts, this muscle, that is stapedius muscle, it contracts, again it will pull the stapes inside. So when both this muscle contract, what happen is they will compact this ossicular chain, that is this tensor tympani will pull the malleus inside, that is to the medial side, whereas the stapedius will pull the stapes towards the lateral side. So when they act together or when they pull it, so this ossicular chain are condensed and the movement or the vibrations are reduced. So it has some beneficial use. For example, loud noise. So whenever there is a loud noise is coming, so because of this contraction or this attenuation reflex, so your the increase that loud sound won't enter to the inner ear and cochlea is not damaged. So it is a protective reflex. Also when we are speaking, okay, and I am speaking, my voice will be audible up to some distance. Okay, the volume will be high, but the same volume I will not be hearing myself because this muscles, stapedius and all, they will be contracting, and I am not hearing the same volume which someone else is hearing there. Okay, and this is one of the advantage of this attenuation reflex. Again, the chewing while eating, the chewing sounds and all, it is prevented, so we can't hear ourselves. So mainly that is the attenuation reflex here, and it has a latent period of 40 to 80 milliseconds. Okay, very small latent period. So if suppose very explosively short-lived sound, for example explosion of a bomb or something, if it is less than that latent period, then it may damage the cochlea, because this action or reflex will take some time, 40 to 80 milliseconds. If the sound of higher loudness with a short span less than this latent before this reflex occurs, then it will damage this ossicular chain and also the inner ear. Okay, this attenuation reflex. Then the third mechanism of this middle ear is there is a phase differential between the round window and the oval window. Now I'll explain you what is this phase differential between this oval and round window. Okay, so I hope you very well know what is oval window, what is round window. Okay, oval window is present at the foot end of the stepes, whereas this round window is present here. Okay, so over this round window, if you remember in the anatomy section we have discussed, there is one layer or membrane. That layer is known as secondary tympanic membrane. Okay, so now what is the basic mechanism? Is the sound vibration from the stepes when it is moving like a piston. Okay, not exactly like a piston, it will open, it is like a joint here, is like a door. Okay, it will just give some vibrations. Okay, it will just push and pull to the scala vestibuli part. So when it does that, the vibrations are transmitted to the perilymph here, and ultimately either through the helicotrema or most of the time directly it will go to the scala tympani perilymph, and that vibrations come back to the round window. So there is a phase differential between this oval and round window. What does it mean? That is, when stepes is pushing the fluid inside, okay, when it is pushing the fluid inside, okay, that is on the towards the medial side, then at that time this round window secondary tympanic membrane will pull here, that is it will come to the lateral side. That is, when it is pushing here, round window will come here, and when it is pulling back, that is when the stepes foot plate comes here to the lateral side, this round window will come here again, it will come to the medial side. When it will come, oval window comes like this, round window will here. Okay, so like this mechanism occurs, and is known as phase differential. Why this occurs is because the sound waves, one that is compression and rarefaction, one is in the compression phase, another in the rarefaction, vice versa. If both are in the same phase of the sound waves, then both would have the cancelled each other, and the waves would have not transmitted in the middle ear. So middle ear, because of this presence of these two windows, has a phase differential, that is oval and round window. Okay, then this round window secondary tympanic membrane, it can move freely because there is a air medium here. Okay, it is maintained by the air medium here, and which is maintained by the, of course, by the eustachian tube. So this is third function of the middle ear in the mechanism of hearing. Then finally, this external ear, middle ear, some structures, they have certain natural frequencies, that is natural resonance of the external and middle ear. Okay, for example, they will respond, or these particular frequencies of the sound can transmit better through this particular part of the external and middle ear. For example, this external acoustic matters, the frequency of around 3000 hertz are better transmitted or better resonated at this part. Okay, and in the middle ear around this one 800 to 6, that is tympanic, in the tympanic membrane it is around 800 to 16,000 hertz, 1600 hertz. Okay, and oscicular change around 500 to 2000 hertz, and in the middle ear around 800 hertz. That is the natural resonance for the frequencies. Okay, so natural resonance of these external and middle ear structures. Okay, so natural resonance. So few frequencies are better resonated on the particular part of the external and middle ear. This is known as natural resonance of external ear and the middle ear. Okay, so these are the four important phenomena in the physiology of hearing. So in the physiology of the hearing, from the theory exam point of view, in the subject physiology, many times in the theory university exam it has been asked as a 10 marks question. You have to explain as role of external ear, role of middle ear, and role of inner ear. Okay, so role of external and middle external ear and middle ear is mainly the conduction of the sound. As we have, we are discussing under conduction, transduction, and neural transmission. So conduction is mainly due to the external and middle, that is they will conduct the sound waves to the inner ear. Okay, so middle ear, sometimes directly a 5 marks question will be there. Explain the functions of the middle ear in the mechanism of hearing or physiology of hearing. You have to explain these four important phenomena, that is impedance matching, attenuation reflex, phase differential between the oval and round window, and the natural resonance of the external and the middle ear parts. Okay, that's all about the external and middle ear. Now comes to the inner ear. Okay, now comes to the inner ear, that is the role of inner ear. Inner ear. So inner ear, how the sound waves will be transmitted through the inner ear via the auditory pathway via to the inner cells. So in the inner ear, the basic mechanism was taking place is this transduction. What is this transduction? So transduction is here the sound energy, which is the mechanical energy, is converted into electrical energy. That is, the mechanical energy is converted into electrical energy in this inner ear. Now exactly which part of the inner ear? In the scala media, there is one receptor organ known as spiral organ of Corti or organ of Corti. In that organ of Corti, there are receptor cells known as hair cells, outer hair cells and inner hair cells. In these hair cells, they are known as transducer cells. They will convert this sound energy, which is a mechanical energy, into the electrical energy. So the transduction of this sound occurs at this point, that is in the inner ear at the organ of Corti. Okay, and the receptor cells are hair cells. There are two types, outer hair cells and inner hair cells. Now how exactly they will convert this mechanical energy into electrical energy, now we will discuss. To discuss that, again you are supposed to know the anatomy of the inner ear. Okay, I won't go much about this. I'll just draw a bigger diagram about this organ of Corti to understand this concept of transduction, how exactly this takes place, and there are certain potentials you are supposed to know. We are going to discuss that. So now the role of inner ear in the physiology of hearing. Okay, hope you understood the role of the external ear as well as the middle ear till now. Now the role of inner ear. Okay, so now please give your kind concentration. It's bit difficult to understand really the role of inner ear until you know the anatomy of the inner ear. Okay, if you are knowing the thorough anatomy of the organ of Corti and the inner ear, then definitely you can understand better. Okay, so again I request, so please go back to our playlist of our channel Doctor's Corner. In that, please watch the anatomy of the inner ear or the internal ear, then you can understand it well. Okay, anyway, so if you take a cut section of the cochlea, okay, in the inner ear we have already discussed. I'll just briefly revise here. So this one is the bony part. Again, there is a modulus. So at the modulus, two membranes are attached. So one membrane, it is at the base, it is known as basilar membrane. Okay, it is known as basilar membrane. Basilar membrane. Okay. Then one more membrane, it is attached at a different part of the modulus, and this is known as Risner's membrane, or also known as vestibular membrane. Okay, Risner's membrane. And this green part is the bony canal. Okay, and in the bony canal there are two membranes which will divide this bony canal, that is cochlear canal, into three compartments. Okay, this is known as Risner's membrane, double S, Risner's membrane, or also known as vestibular membrane. Okay, vestibular membrane. Now this divides into three compartments, and this first compartment, it is filled with one fluid known as perilymph, and this compartment, it is known as scala vestibuli, and this lower one again, it is also filled with perilymph, and it is known as scala tympani. And in this one, the middle one in between this Risner's membrane and basilar membrane, again it is filled with one fluid, and that fluid is endolymph. Okay, and this, it is known as scala media. Okay, and this endolymph is rich in potassium, and it is due to the one structure known as stria vascularis, which is secreting this fluid, which is having the rich in potassium ions. So more potassium will be there with respect to scala vestibuli and scala tympani, that is the perilymph. Okay, now here there is organ of Corti. So organ of Corti, basically it has the receptor cells. So the main receptor cells are the hair cells. Okay, hair cells. The hair cells are two types. One is inner hair cells, which are arranged in a single row. Okay, which are arranged in the single row. So around 3,500 such inner hair cells will be there in a single row, which are the receptor cells. And we have the outer hair cells. Again we have the outer hair cells, they have the cilia. These outer hair cells are arranged in the rows, 3 or 4 rows. Okay, like these 3 or 4 rows these outer hair cells are present. So around 12,000, 3 times more than this one, 12,000 such outer hair cells will be present. Okay, and the diameter of this hair cell, inner hair cell, will be around 12 micrometer, and the outer hair cell will be around 8 micrometer. Okay, so the outer hair cells are more as compared to the inner hair cells. Now these outer and inner hair cells, ultimately they are connected with some axons, bipolar axons, which ultimately they are connected to the spiral ganglion in the modulus bone. Okay, we have discussed about that first order neurons. This will form ultimately the vestibulocochlear nerve or the 8th cranial nerve, which will go via the auditory pathway. Okay, I won't discuss about the auditory pathway, which we have already discussed. Now we are concentrating upon this type transduction, how the sound waves are converted into electrical energy. Okay, now apart from this two important receptor cells, inner hair cells and the outer hair cells, we have some supporting cells. Okay, that supporting cells are also known as Hansen cells, Claudius cells and Dieter cells. Okay, some supporting cells will be there, and we have here tunnel of Corti and rods of Corti. Okay, this anatomy I'm not going to discuss much. And over this hair cells, that is cilia, they are embedded on the one gelatinous membrane. This gelatinous membrane is known as tectorial membrane or membrana tectoria. Okay, tectorial membrane. Okay, again there is a reticular lamina, one more membrane structure, it is known as reticular lamina. We have tectorial membrane. Okay, now basic mechanism is, what happen is, when the sound waves are transmitted through the oval window into the scala vestibuli, these waves are transmitted to the scala tympani too. So this scala tympani causes the movements of this basilar membrane. Due to the movements, upward and downward movement of the basilar membrane, these hair cells will move, and these hair cell cilia are embedded in this tectorial membrane, and it causes some friction of these hair cells. Okay, and due to the friction and the vibrations of these hair cells, ultimately the potassium conductance, the potassium channels open and potassium channels enter here, causes depolarization, and the action potential is generated in the 8th cranial nerve. Now to understand this very basic concept, you are supposed to know some very important membrane potentials. So I'll just tell the membrane potential before, so that you can understand it very well. So at the resting condition, this hair cells, outer and inner hair cells, there you can see the two potentials here. One thing is endocochlear potential. I'll explain what is endocochlear potential. And at the resting condition of the cells, and we have the resting membrane potential of the hair cells. Resting membrane potential of the hair cells. Okay, now what is this endocochlear potential? So you know, this fluid in this scala media is known as endolymph, right? So this endolymph, it is secreted by one structure, vascular structure known as stria vascularis. Okay, so this stria vascularis secrete one fluid in the scala media. Scala media means in between this basilar membrane and the rhinous membrane. That fluid is rich in potassium. Okay, is rich in potassium, which is secreted through the stria vascularis, and due to this increased cation, that is potassium, the resting condition, if you calculate the potential of the fluid at the resting condition of the endolymph, it is, as compared to this perilymph, it is positive, so it will be around plus 80 millivolt because of the excess of this potassium ions with respect to this scala vestibuli and scala tympani. So that plus 80 millivolt potential of this endolymph in the scala media is called as endocochlear potential, that is at the resting condition. Now these hair cells at the resting conditions, inside the cell also has certain ionic distribution in the resting condition, and it is usually minus 70 millivolt. Okay, minus 70 millivolt with respect to the perilymph. Okay, at the base of the hair cells there is a perilymph from the basilar membrane, so with respect to the perilymph it is negative, that is minus 70 millivolt. Okay, but with respect to endolymph, if you see on the upper side, that is the scala media is already plus 80 millivolt, so minus 70 millivolt, then together it will be minus 150 millivolt with respect to, that is the resting membrane potential of the hair cells, with respect to this endolymph is minus 150 millivolt, and with respect to the perilymph it is minus 70 millivolt. Okay, so this is the two potential that is at the resting condition. Now when this basilar membrane vibrates in response to the sound waves, in response to the sound waves, two important potentials again generate. So one is cochlear microphonic potential, and another one is action potential of the 8th cranial nerve. Okay, action potential in the 8th cranial nerve. Okay, that is this vestibulocochlear nerve. So ultimately, because of this movement, these two potentials form, and ultimately the action through the action potential is generated, and the impulse is transmitted through this nerve to the brain. Okay, now what is this cochlear microphonic potential? It is a generator potential, that is whenever this will vibrate, okay, when this basilar membrane moves up and down, what happens is, I'll just draw one more diagram here of the hair cells. So hair cells are like this, okay, it has nucleus and other thing, and most important thing is finger like projection. And around on a single hair cell, around 100 finger like projection will be there. This is known as cilia. Okay, and the one bigger cilium, it is known as kinocilium, and that smaller cilium is known as stereocilia. Okay, stereocilia. So around 100 of the cilia will be present here on the hair cell, kinocilium and stereocilia. Okay, now as you know, these are embedded into this gelatinous material, that is the tectorial membrane, that is the cilia, kinocilium, the stereocilia are embedded in this tectorial membrane. Okay, and below this they are at the basilar membrane, and they are fixed by one more membrane, that is reticular lamina. Okay, so now when there is movement, so because of the upward and downward movement, there is movement of these hair cells with respect to this tectorial membrane. Okay, with respect to this tectorial membrane, and they causes the motion, to and forth motion of this hair cells. Because of these movements, whenever there is this one stereocilia moves here towards this longer one, the potassium channels are opened, and potassium from this endolymph enters inside this cell, and it will cause the depolarization of the cell. Whereas when it is moving in the opposite direction, there is hyperpolarization, that is potassium channels, potassium will go out and cell will become negative, that is hyperpolarization. Okay, so depolarization and hyperpolarization occurs due to the upward and downward movement of this basilar membrane. Okay, so now because of this, they generate this cochlear microphonic potential. It is a generator potential. So what exactly it means is, so it is a when there is a movement and depolarization of the ions because of the opening of the potassium cations, when it enters here and causes this depolarization, these potentials are generated. It is not an action potential because it does not obey the all or none law, and there is no latent period, and it does not respond to the anesthesia and ischemia as compared to the action potential. So the sum of the receptor potentials of all the hair cells when recorded extracellularly is known as cochlear microphonic potential. I repeat, the summed extracellular recording of all the receptor potentials of the hair cells is known as cochlear microphonic potential. It is a generator potential, not the action potential. Okay, now this all this thing generator is ultimately converted into the action potential of the nerve, because from this hair cells. Okay, so that is the transduction, it is the mechanical energy is converted into the electrical energy. Okay, so you should know about these various potentials, and few extra points I would like to add here is, so around in the cochlear nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, around 30,000 fibers, that is 30,000 axons will be there, and most of them these transmitted through the inner hair cells as compared to the outer hair cells. But outer hair cells will regulate the activity of the inner hair cell, but 90% of the fibers are connected to the inner hair cell, that is inner hair cells will transmit the signal, that is the electrical signal, to the vestibulocochlear nerve. So around 30,000 nerve fibers will be there, okay, in the cochlear nerve, and they are tonotopically arranged in the primary auditory cortex. Okay, we'll discuss about that. Okay, so that was about the transduction of the sound waves, that is the sound waves are converted into electrical energy. Now this electrical energy will go to the brain, to the primary auditory cortex, that is area number 41 and 42, and association area. So it goes through the auditory pathway. I hope you remember that auditory pathway. Those who have not remembering that auditory pathway, please go back to my previous video of auditory pathway and you can see. So this transmission of this signal via the action potential. So action potential is basically generated after this. So there will be entry of the cations like calcium, and this calcium ions will causes the release of the neurotransmitter glutamate, which is an excitatory glutamate, will causes the transmission of the impulse to the transmission to the 8th cranial nerve neurons. Okay, so that is the action potential is transmitted through this cation calcium, which causes the release of the neurotransmitter glutamate. Now coming to the neural transmission, that is neural transmission starts from here and to the first order neuron, second order, third order neuron. Finally it will go to the primary auditory cortex by the auditory pathway. Now how neural encoding, how we'll perceive the various frequencies of sound and various type of the loudness and different musics. Okay, so I'll just briefly explain that. It's a very big topic, so just I'll tell you the very basic things about this thing. One thing is frequency, another one is loudness, how we perceive the different frequency. See, frequency and pitch. Pitch is the subjective sensation of the frequencies of the sound, different frequency. For example, females have the high pitch sound and males have the low pitch sound. Okay, so how we recognize whether it is a high pitch sound or a low pitch sound? So this low pitch sound, okay, so low pitch sound and high pitch sound. The high pitch sound will usually, they will vibrate at the base of this one basilar membrane, and the high pitch sound, they will vibrate this apex. Okay, so base will be a bit stiff. So this basilar membrane, where it is attached to the modulus bone here, so here it will be bit stiff and bit flexible here at the periphery. So the high pitch sounds will usually vibrate this part of the basilar membrane, and low pitch sound will vibrate this part of the basilar membrane. Okay, and intermediate sound will vibrate the middle part of the basilar membrane. So this is known as place theory or traveling wave theory. Traveling wave theory, place theory or traveling wave theory. Okay, it is also known as von Bexey traveling wave theory. So what this traveling wave theory says, or the place theory says, that so the high pitch sound or high frequency sounds causes the vibrations of the basilar membrane in this particular part of the, that is at the base of the basilar membrane, whereas the low pitch or low frequency sound causes the vibrations at the lower this one at the apex. Okay, so this basilar membrane will respond to different frequencies at the different site, that is known as the place or traveling wave theory. Okay, so this explains the traveling of the waves from the frequencies up from 2000 to 20,000 hertz, whereas the lower frequency up to 20 to 2000 hertz is explained by one more theory, that is the Wallis principle. So the most lower frequencies below 2000 hertz are transmitted through by the summed activities of the vibrations of this basilar membrane. They formed a this frequency, they formed a Wallis. Okay, and they are transmitted. So two theories, these together they are known as duplex theory, that is the place or traveling wave theory, and the Wallis theory. Together they will be known as duplex theory, and they explain the perceiving of the frequency. Okay, so frequency, that is the high pitch sound or higher frequencies, are causes the vibration of this basilar part of the basilar membrane, and the low frequencies are caused at the lower part of apex part of the apical part of the basilar membrane. They will vibrate that, and this vibration, as I said you, there are nearly 30,000 axons are present in this auditory nerve. Okay, so that 30,000 axons are transmitted to the cerebral cortex. Okay, so they are tonotopically arranged. Okay, tonotopically arranged, that is high pitch frequencies are carried by particular axons, and low pitch or low frequencies and intermediate frequencies are carried to this. So this is how we perceive the different frequency. Now comes the one more thing known as loudness, which we generally determine with the help of decibels. So this decibels, that is the loudness, okay. So this, the same low pitch or high pitch sound can be of more volume or less volume, it is more loud or less loud, okay. So this loudness is determined by the number of vibrations of the basilar membrane. The more louder this sound, the more, many times, the number of time this basilar membrane vibrates will determine the loudness of the sound. If the sound is very loud, it will vibrate of a particular frequency. It will, suppose high pitch sound is loud, so this high pitch sound, it will vibrate on this part of the basilar membrane, and it will vibrate more times. The more number of time it will vibrate, it determines the loudness. So the more number of time it will vibrate, it will causes the stimulation of the more number of the hair cells, and that is ultimately transmitted to the this one to the primary auditory area, okay. So number of times vibration, it is loudness, and frequency at the place, okay, place theory or traveling wave theory. So this is how neural encoding of the various frequencies and loudness is perceived by our human ear, okay. And the direction of the human which sound, from where it comes, I already described while explaining this one. One is the time lag mechanism, okay. So if you like our video, please share this our link of our channel Doctor's Corner, and please subscribe it. Thank you.